Welcome back. Thanks for joining us again here at Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. We're bringing you our NFC edition of our 1 minute fix format. We had a conversation about the 16 AFC teams and the one fix we would put in place ahead of the new season. Go check it out. A lot's been happening in the NFC. Slightly delayed recording on our part, mainly because of me, busy with work and such, that boned some of our 1 minute fixes. We can talk about that as we touch on them, mainly the LA Rams. But Byron, just me and you again. Joe busy, can't make it. But yeah, how are you? Again, how are you feeling about us? You know, some of your fixes maybe being a little bit taken.
Yeah, very upset, truthfully. I thought I'd, scooped out a good one. The Rams, you put yourself in a position to be Super Bowl favorites, go and take that next step. The Browns have made Myles Garrett tradable with his contract. Just go and do it. And then they did ahead of time. So I get to take a screenshot of our Google chat to look like I know what I'm talking about, but sadly don't get to have the clip and the video, which would have been great. But yeah, we will get to that and some other moves. We have obviously NFC coming up, and we'll start with Philadelphia as it happens. But obviously they've made a move since. You managed to get the AJ Brown one out in time. We
Yes.
wanted in May, so we get AJ Brown to the Patriots as a good one in good time.
It was the worst kept secret in football, though, I guess, wasn't it? So it was no secret, thanks.
I'm not sure it was the worst kept secret in New England football, but it was up there. Michael Vrabel would like it to be the worst kept secret in football, but his other issues come up as it turns out.
I hear we're going to get more about that general practice as well.
Keep getting teasers, yeah.
We do. Anyway, let's talk about. We will talk some news before we go through our 16 fixes, one each for each NFC team. And let's start there. So yeah, as you alluded to, you made the fix that maybe the Rams could just go get. You've got everything in place. You're the Super Bowl favorites. Go get that finishing piece. You didn't do it in the draft. Well, now we know why they didn't do it in the draft, because they had their eyes set on Myles Garrett, traded from the Cleveland Browns to the LA Rams for Jared Verse, a 2027 first, a 2028 second, and a 2029 third round pick, all going to the Cleveland Browns. Let's look at it from the Rams. There's two sides to it. Let's start from the Rams perspective. Yeah, they had a plan all along. We kind of were knocking them after the draft. What are you doing selecting Ty Simpson at 13? Go get that piece. Whatever it is, go get that piece. Well, they've got it now.
Yeah, and boy, did they get it. Myles Garrett, the best defensive player since Aaron Donald retired, I think it's fair to say, certainly alongside him for a lot of that as well. Over the past 3 years, Myles Garrett has the NFL lead in sack rate. He has the NFL second in quick pressure rate. All the while, he's chipped or double team more than any edge rusher in the league. He's a one of one. We love Micah Parsons. Well, we love him as a Cowboy. We both think he's elite, obviously. There's a few who come close. TJ Watt, obviously, is up there in that conversation. Max Crosby, Aiden Hutchinson getting in that conversation as well. But none of them are Myles Garrett, who truly is one of one. And, you think he does all that with Cleveland, who barely have a lead. The Rams have a lot of leads, and I'm sure they're going to have more than usual with Myles Garrett in there. And I thought Daniel Jeremiah made a really good point of, you want closers on your team. And I think, you look at Matthew Stafford, the last 2 minutes, how many quarterbacks do you want the ball in the hand more than Matthew Stafford? I don't think there's many. And then how many edge rushers do you want when you are protecting a 4-point lead, 2 minutes on the clock? Which edge rusher would you take in the NFL? It's Myles Garrett. There's no number two who's coming close there. You could pick maybe a handful of quarterbacks who you would take alongside Matthew Stafford as your clutch guys, but you're taking nobody over Myles Garrett. So maybe this will look like an overpay in a few years if Jared Verse continues his development and, ends up being an elite pass rusher. But it's really hard to knock the LA Rams for what they've done. They've done this before, bringing in Matthew Stafford, trading away a Jared, as it turned out, and some early picks to get there, and they won a Super Bowl with it. They are rightly Super Bowl favorites right now. I think they're 13-2, 6-1 ish. Came down from 8-1. I thought they would come down even further. Truthfully, it's tough to make an argument that they're the best roster in the NFL. And I think you look at even like the cornerback additions they've made now, McDuffie and Jalen Watson, and I think those guys are going to be like, well, that ball's going to have to come out pretty quick. And that's with Myles Garrett there. So, interesting for the Rams. What's your thought on it?
Yeah, I think. Well, I think this probably talks about some other trades. Actually, I can't remember the one, but we talked about a lot better. I think this is actually a win-win for both. Mm-hmm. I think for the Rams, they get that finisher, and I don't think it's not a knock on Jared Verse at all in terms of they've traded him. I think the Rams are pretty happy with how Jared Verse was developing. He got better for his first 2 years. Potentially was going to make a leap, but he ain't Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett has still got a window of maybe 3-4 years here where he can still go at the level he's at. He's not really showing much signs, if any, of dropping off. And you talk about like that impact that the closer Aaron Donald. Well, how did they finish off that Super Bowl win with the Bengals? They got the lead late, and it was Aaron Donald that closed it out with a couple of key pressures, and I mean, it's that second a key pressure on Joe Burrow and just kind of stalled that Bengals drive. And that's potentially how you can go do this. And we've seen them do it with the veterans, and it's not just like it's they made the move and spent first round picks on Brandon Cooks, Jalen Ramsey, Stafford, Von Miller as well was in that team they spent picks on, not necessarily first, but this is about now. Again, we have with Stafford, I think he's maximizing what you've got with Stafford now. Mm-hmm. And you hope, obviously, that Ty Simpson's going to come in, and you've still got the other, long pieces, because that defense is still pretty young outside of Garrett. I know you lost one of your young pieces in Jared Verse, but the back end's young. You've got the players in to shore that up. You've got Puka Nakuru is going to be a long-term top wide receiver in the NFL. What is he, 3 years in now? He potentially got another 7-8 years of him. You've got a line that's pretty good. Essentially, you've got all the pieces here to be able to go again. And ultimately, I think the proof of your pudding this is you've got to be looking at winning a couple of championships again over the next 2-3 years, or before Matthew Stafford hangs it up. So I think it's great for the Rams. They've got that finisher. They came in. I think when we did bets the future, I took them at 15-2, 7.5 to 1. They're down in 11-2, depending who your bookmaker is. To win the Super Bowl 61 come, which, funnily enough, at home again, like it was at the 2021 season, 5 years ago, where that happened. So, and they've been pretty consistent outside of the year after winning the Super Bowl, where it was just an injury disaster. They've been there or thereabouts every other year. So, I just you look at the rest from a betting perspective. Rams are currently 5.5 to 1. It's 10 to 1 plus. Bills are next at 10 to 1. That's how big the gap is, I think. So, and I think that's fair in terms of where that roster is versus everyone else. From a Browns perspective, I think a good deal. So, obviously, they got Garrett back last year. We went through the rigmarole of him asking to be traded, him being adamant it was about championships, not Canton, and then he got the money, and then he came back, and now he's got his chance at championships. He kind of got the very much have your cake and eat it too, and boy, did he. So, he's got his money and he's got his opportunity to go win at least one, maybe more rings. But I think from a Browns perspective, if you look at kind of them, not necessarily this year, I think it's down bad if you lose kind of that. He's someone that's defined the Browns for the last 10, however many years, 8 years or so that he's been in the league. He's been your only bright spot, really, of enjoying watching football outside of the Baker Mayfield playoff run, I guess, and a bit of fun with Joe Flacco for half a season. You've not really had much to shout about from a Cleveland Browns perspective, but Myles Garrett every week was a reason to keep on watching, a reason to keep on going to games because he was just that good. Yes, you've lost that, but in verse, you've got somebody who, I don't know, certainly won't ever be as good as Myles Garrett because that bar's insane. But he's somebody who can develop to become, and I think I like my defensive player of the year shout a little bit more, weirdly, with Verse going to the Browns. Interestingly, I don't know. I've not seen the movement on that. I'll have a check. But I just think he's got the opportunity to develop more. He could become one of those elite players, not again like Garrett, but just in that echelon of, I think your Parsons, your Watts, where those others have been. So you have that. You have the picks. You have some great ammunition. We're expecting them to attack 2027 for a quarterback. I think they're in a good place to do that. They've had a good couple of drafts. I think you're banking on yourself that actually, if you can continue having drafts like that actually they could be in, come maybe 2028, a position to have a really, really well-rounded roster and be a good team for a long period of time. And this helps you do that. Could they have got there by still keeping Garrett? Maybe. But this just gives you those extra bits getting there. So I think it's the best for both parties, I think.
Yeah, hard to disagree. I'm a big fan of Jared Verse as well. I took him as Defensive Player of the Year last year. So obviously a fan already. His first 2 years in the league, 2 Pro Bowl seasons. His first 2 years in the league, only Myles Garrett and Josh Hines-Allen have more pressures than he does in those 2 years. Last year, second in quarterback hits, 6th in run stops at edge, 6th in pressures at edge. He does it all already. I think he's a really, really good player. But I think absolutely makes, you said it's win-win. I totally agree. I've seen some saying the Browns didn't get enough. You've got to remember Myles Garrett is 30. Like, the window to trade him isn't that much longer because, there will be a drop-off, maybe at 32. And, teams want the production. They don't want his old production. They want what he's going to do in the, this year, the next year. And, the Eagles were rumored to be in here. And they, kind of withdrew when... why have I forgotten the defensive tackle's name from Georgia? Who isn't Jordan Davis? I don't know why. Carter? Jalen Carter. Goodness me. I don't know why his name slipped out from my head there. The Browns insisted that they get Jalen Carter back. And I think that, again, speaks to what level Jared Verse is seen at around the league. He is a 2-time Pro Bowl defensive player. To me, he's the best young edge in the league. I'm saying that as players who are still on their rookie contract. I can't think of one I would take over him off the top of my head. Aiden Hutchinson got paid. And yeah, I just think he's a foundational piece for the Browns. And like I was happy with the Jets making their moves last year, getting rid of Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams to reload for the future. If you're not winning games with Myles Garrett setting the sack record and the defensive rookie of the year, and Garrett also the DPOY, unsurprisingly, then why not trade him? Because you're not gonna, the league so often comes down to if you don't have a quarterback, it doesn't matter. And if you don't have somebody who can scheme away from you not having a quarterback in the short term, at the very least, it doesn't matter. You need at least one of those things. Maybe the Browns have that with Munkin, but it's really hard to see the Browns as a playoff team in 2026 with Myles Garrett. So I think you get your value now. Verse is going to be a great defensive player for a long time. That 2027 first, we will see what that becomes, whether that becomes a piece to move up in the draft if they have to. 2028 second is a valuable piece, and 2029 third, it's not going to hurt you, certainly. That does become a first rounder if the Rams trade him to the AFC North, which I absolutely love as a condition. The Cowboys done that with Micah Parsons as well if he ends up in the NFC East. I think particularly the Eagles was the one in mind there. So yeah, I think this is kind of the definition of a win-win trade. The Browns need to get younger. Like you said, they've hit, certainly on last year's draft, they hit. We think they've hit on this year's draft as well. We will wait and see, obviously. And they just need a quarterback in place there. That's always the big if with Cleveland, but I think this has maybe helped them get a step closer to being competitive by 2028. And, when you've been as bad as the Browns have for so long, a long-term view is what you need. So,
absolutely. Just a note, the Jared Verse price, the markets and the bookies clearly don't like them. Potential moves, which made it, he's gone out from 14 to 1 to 28 to 1 for Defensive Player of the Year. So,
harder to make that prime-time impact in Cleveland.
It is very true, unless you're setting a record, which is absolutely cool. Well, that's one trade done. The other one, which we're certainly more aware of, I guess, that was going to be happening. We talked about it in the last episode that it was the move that the Patriots should make to go get themselves a true number one wide receiver. AJ Brown is a New England Patriot, reunited with Mike Vrabel, his previous coach for the Titans. 2028 first and a 2027 fifth going to Philadelphia, the Eagles. I guess it's one we've been talking about for months and months and months. What do you make of it again? Is this exactly what New England will need, and how are Philly gonna cope with losing what was perceived to be their number one receiver? Because it's been tough because it's been heavy sledding on that pass offense for a little while.
Yes, I think on the Philly side of it, they're just going to have to look at kind of the moves they've already made. Eli Stowers and Mekhi Lemon. Eli Stowers is a wide receiver and a tight end name, essentially. Mekhi Lemon, bit of crossover, I think, with Devonta Smith, but strong yak on those, short intermediate routes. And I think that's going to be where they focus the offense more, is like in the intermediate, in the short game. You'll have more Marquise Brown and Dontavian Wicks as your deep guys. Maybe get your cardio in, lads. You're going to be doing some wind sprints this week. But I think Devonta Smith, Mekhi Lemon, Goddard, Eli Stowers are going to be much more intermediate to short passing game options. I think they're going to try and take that deep ball out of Jalen Hurts' game as much as it was, because AJ Brown is, I'm not going to say one of one in the way Myles Garrett is, but AJ Brown is the best deep receiver in the league. Constantly gets open, constantly wins contested catches. Mina Kimes had this up yesterday or earlier this week. Over the last 3 years, AJ Brown ranks number 1 in yards per route run, yards in catches, and in first downs. Last year, Drake May, first in precision pass rate, first in QBR, and first in completion percentage over expected. It's a perfect match for New England. Would you like to give up a first-round pick for a, coming on 30-year-old wide receiver? Maybe not. But again, do you want to win the Super Bowl this year? Yes. So I think another one where I think you kind of look at it and go, well, win-win. AJ Brown had made it clear he didn't want to be in Philadelphia. And I think considering that, I think you're looking, they've got a first-round pick out of it. They've managed to rebuild the offense on the fly, which seems like an annual tradition in Philadelphia, really. They have a new offensive coordinator every year. We'll see what Sean Mannion brings to the table. But yeah, I think this is another one where I feel a bit, cowarding out, but I do think it is win-win for both teams. Like, we knew it was coming. It's gone down pretty much exactly as we all expected.
Yeah, there's also the reason why, I suppose, the reason behind why it didn't get done, pre-draft or around that time, is because of the impact on the cap hit, the dead money hit to the Eagles. I think it would have been over $43 million had he gone before June the 1st. After June the 1st, then they're able to split that significantly over 26 and 27 to be able to, that to be much easier to absorb. Still quite a big hit, but a bit easy to absorb over the next 2 seasons rather than one. So also kind of that long-term view. We talked about the Browns, you're getting a 2028 first. I think you hear the phrase like when you're getting a pick that far in advance, maybe you add a round to it, so maybe it'd feel like a second, but best at the end of the day. And the Eagles have been pretty good at using them recently. So, and they've already got kind of say that Mekhi Lemon in already, and Eli Stowers, I'm a big fan of, interested to see how he goes. And it just feels kind of that there was just a huge problem brewing, a huge problem there that the Eagles needed to resolve. You're not going to get rid of Jalen Hurts, so go get rid of, get rid of AJ Brown, and more's coming out about why that was the case and the origins of the issues between Brown and Jalen Hurts, depending who you choose to believe and what sources you look at, etc. I found this, I mentioned this to you before we started recording, but I've astonishing he's done an interview with basically admitting that he was one of the sources of locker room leaks in Philadelphia, which I just found bizarre when you've joined a new team who's going through its own challenges right now. It
reminds me of you often hear it of if someone cheats on their partner with you, don't be surprised when they cheat on you.
Yeah.
So we'll revisit this in a year and see how Mike Vrabel's enjoying the AJ Brown experience part 2.
Yeah,
if Mike Vrabel is still in situ.
And for the Patriots perspective, they have that kind of big time receiving. I think they've got a lot of. Again, I think I mentioned our episode the other day. I think the receivers played above what that group should have done, or was capable of. Really, I think, and a lot of that was Josh McDaniels, I think, and Drake May, obviously how good Drake May was, etc. But I think they've got that true number one now, and then they've got actually some very, very good role players that kind of then can flesh out those defined roles in the offense a bit more. And it is probably quite a crowded room now, really. And obviously Stephen Diggs went, but you've got Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Matt Hollins, Cal Williams. It's becoming quite a busy wide receiver room in New England there. So, but I think they've got all slightly different profiles, offer a different element that can complement a number one. So yeah, which they didn't have last year. So yeah, again, needed to happen. Patriots have got their guy paid. I think probably a more than a reasonable price. I think for AJ Brown and Philly got a problem solved and dealt with it in the most financially responsible way possible, I guess. Right. Any more on that before we move on? Yeah. Because we've talked about that loads, we've not give that as much air as the Myles Garrett one. Over a couple of bits before we actually get doing what we're supposed to be doing this episode. A couple of contracts for the wide receivers. Drake May, because I was just talking about the Patriots. Drake London, wide receiver of the Atlanta Falcons, agrees to 4-year, $141 million extension. $100 million guaranteed. Could also go up to $150 million in total, averaging $35.25 million. Places him third amongst the league's highest paid wide receivers, just over Justin Jefferson. Thank you to Over the Cap. Does that feel right for kind of what Drake London's production's been, or is this again just getting it done earlier, or getting it done when you can, so you're not paying a bit more down the line?
Yeah, I think that's it. Absolutely. Yeah. I think with how important he is to the Falcons, I don't have the numbers of targets in my head, but I think since he got drafted, he must be up there for team target shares because he just dominates targets when he's on the field, and he's really, really good. So yeah, I think being slightly under the top guys, I think makes total sense. He'll end up probably, once everyone starts getting paid from the rookie class, he might end up a little lower, but he'd be a top 5. Until all the contracts come around again, because it's just the way it is. You're an elite player at your position, you'll end up in that top few, and then the next batch will knock you down a couple. So, yeah, I think it makes sense for the Falcons, get it done as soon as you can. Makes sense for Drake London, get your money as soon as you can. So, yeah, another tick, win-win.
Quick one. Given how easy it is to get in the Pro Bowl now, Drake London not made one.
Well, I think how easy it is, how many of the first choices have dropped out would kind of be the question, I guess. Like, I looked up that for Jared Verse. Like, Jared Verse was a 2-time Pro Bowler. Both were, and neither were replacements. They were both proper Pro Bowlers. Shadur Sanders, I think, was 27th choice, and he got his Pro Bowl thing. Drake London, I'm guessing it just means receivers haven't dropped out because he's certainly been in and around the top 5, 6, 7 in the NFC, certainly, the last 2 years. So you would expect him to, crack that at some point. Just, I'm guessing a lot more quarterbacks end up sitting these things out if you look at some of the names who end up there rather than like wide receivers. I don't think we ever get like the 12th best wide receiver. Very rarely makes it.
Just now, I was just listening to a lot of
It's weird, yeah.
Yeah, very, very odd. Falcons have got some other long-term financial decisions to make, which we'll get to in this, which we'll talk about. And obviously, this was, again, maybe one of the things that might have had a knock-on effect to the fix that we suggested for the Falcons, but we've not rewritten it. We're going to leave it as it is. And then another wide receiver got paid as well, Christian Watson, $110.5 million extension, including a $31 million signing bonus. And also at the same time, fairly recently, how long ago Jaden Reed got extended? Maybe 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
As well. So they've got their receivers tied up. Obviously, Watson's been, he's averaging 20, what's the maths on that? 27.6. Good maths. Which, funnily enough, because this was part of one something, kind of puts him on line with where he would have been if, a situation would have arisen if he got put on a franchise tag this year. Is that indicative of maybe of what the Packers actually think of Christian Watson?
I think so. He was really, really good last year as well. In the last 2 years as well, he's second most yards per target in the NFL. He's not just a deep threat receiver. He can get involved in the intermediate game as well. But I think as a deep threat, there's few better in the league. Again, AJ Brown, we just mentioned, maybe Alec Pierce, but I think he's much more one-dimensional, certainly than AJ Brown. And I would say more one-dimensional than Christian Watson, who I think can get involved all over the field for the Packers. Yeah, their wide receiver core is pretty young. Got those two now on their second contracts, and Matthew Gordon on his first contract, who, they want to see a big improvement within year 2. But again, Christian Watson, the only thing that is a slight issue here is the injury history. But if he plays fully fit and has another year like he did last year, this year, then that number would be higher by, we've seen what Ali Pierce got paid off a, I would say, a much more limited body of work in terms of like targets per game, etc. So again, I think paying him while it makes sense, I think makes sense. And Christian Watson, who has had injury problems, had his knee issue, if someone offers you, $100 million, sign the contract, just take it, and hope that you don't get banged up while you're on that contract, but make sure you sign it before you do get banged up in case. So again, I feel like I'm being way too positive to start this show, but I think another win-win.
It's all right. Well, your time to shine and hammer some of these teams is coming, Byron. Don't worry. Right, should we get into it then? That's probably the rest. Nick Herbig signed deal with the Steelers, as is Darnell Washington, which is good to see. Glad the big guy's getting.
Love Darnell Washington.
He's fantastic. So yeah, there's those as well. Probably a couple of other bits that we've missed.
Former Steelers quarterback retired as well.
Which one?
Dangerous.
Oh, Dangerous, of course. It just didn't put it in my head that Russell Wilson was former Steelers quarterback.
Fair.
For a second, yeah. What did he manage a whole 8 starts as a Pittsburgh? Anyway, yes, Dangerous. Russell Wilson retired after, how is it, 17 seasons?
It'll be around that, 2012. So,
oh no,
can't do the quick maths there, but yeah, it's around there. Yeah.
Yeah, less than that. Yeah. Anyway, but yes, he is retired and he's going to be on TV with CBS. So look forward to that on your Sunday if you choose to watch CBS for your games. Yeah, maybe a lot of fun. It was a bit rough down the stretch with the Broncos, the Steelers, the Giants, but yeah.
In time to come, we'll forget the last 4 years of his career. He'll probably go into Canton, and whatever he does do, he'll go in a Seahawks jersey, despite getting a Pro Bowl as a Steeler. Just to reiterate how the quarterback Pro Bowl stuff is ludicrous. 11 starts for the Steelers. He got a Pro Bowl, not on that basis. But his first 10 seasons in Seattle, 9 Pro Bowls, Super Bowl winner, top 20 passing yardage all time. I hope we don't, let his woeful end of his career, let's be blunt, denigrate a great first decade of it. It'll be one of those decisions on whether he gets in the Hall of Fame. And I don't know exactly what the criteria is. I think he probably is a Hall of Famer with 1 ring, that consistent Pro Bowl production. Again, not sure how many of those were alternates or first choice, but a lot of them should have been first choice. So, yeah, I think we'll see how he is on TV. I think he's certainly an interesting character as well. So, he's not done in the public eye, but done on the NFL field.
Excellent. Right, shall we get into this? Because we've done a half an hour and not done the
more on the news than we're going to do on the show.
The AFC 1 Minute Fix episode was less than this, and we've not even started 16 suggested fixes. Then let's start in our division. Let's start in the NFC East. Byron, we've just been talking a little bit of Eagles, obviously with trading AJ Brown away. But what's the problem? What's your suggested fix for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, problem. They have no AJ Brown. No, we knew that was coming. I didn't include that. All-line depth could become an issue over the season. It looks okay if you just have your starting 5. But what I would do is I'd bring Mekhi Becton back. You did lose Jeff Stoutland, so it's not an exact relationship still there. But they've seen what Mekhi Becton can do. His best football was in Philadelphia playing guard. Well, guard's still probably the weakest spot on that line. Could maybe fill in at tackle, if there is issues with Lane Johnson's health on the season as well. And I just think, I'm kind of surprised Mekhi Becton's still out there. He's a youngish player. He's still only 27. He knows the city. Like I said, there's so many Philadelphia changes offense every year, but he knows the personnel. I just think he'd be a good addition as a rotational player. So, yeah, bring back Mekhi Becton into the city of brotherly love. Paul, on with Dallas.
Yeah, on to the Dallas Cowboys. So our team, I have no idea what's happened to the colour on the sheet there, but I think so. The Cowboys, I think they've done a good job in a very short space of time reshaping the defense and adding a lot of depth to the defense. I think they've done that pretty well for free agency and the draft. I think they've got some stars that they've managed to acquire. That kind of started with a trade last year for Quinn Williams. You've got the new defensive coordinator, Christian Parker. Caleb Downs is your star. Lawrence, who I know you're a big fan of. So they've got a lot of really, really good pieces. I just think they've got that depth in that pass rush that they thought they'd got last year, which was actually terrible. I think they've actually got that now, but I think you need a difference maker. Shame you traded one, but I think you need to go get a difference maker. And I think that difference maker could be Josh Sweat, somebody who has been very vocal about how unhappy he is in Arizona. In fact, he's moaned about being everywhere in recent years. But I think you can get him at a relatively good price from a trade perspective. I think you can work the numbers out because the Cardinals are kind of losing a bit of leverage. Yeah, in Sweat, just with how vocal he's been. So I think you go take a gamble here that Josh Sweat could be a difference maker. In his position, you're probably not going to get tied up with too much money. It's worth the gamble to coincide with what you've got. You've got you move for Rashawn Gary. You've got Ezra who is a second-year player. Talked about Malachi Lawrence. I think you've got some good depth pieces. Go get somebody who, if he's at it, can be a real difference maker for you if he switched on and incentivized properly, etc. And he could be the focal point that the rest can kind of pick up the pieces around. So yeah, go be bold and go make a move for Josh Sweat.
Grand. Washington. The pass catching room is close to empty. You got Terry McLaurin, who David Blau has already said he wants to get 10 targets a game. He said that before the draft and free agency, and then they went out and added Chig Okonkwo, who I like as a tight end, and pretty much nothing else. Antonio Williams maybe in the slot in the third round. So what I would recommend, we already mentioned this guy has maybe been subject to requirements in New England in a contract year. You'll get him for a 6th rounder, I'm sure. Make a booty call to New England. See if Keyshawn is available. Late round pick. You've got, like I say, Antonio Williams, Chig Okonkwo intermediate, Terry McLaurin everywhere on the field. He'll get himself open and get a target. Deep threat would be nice. Keyshawn Booty, very good at it. Had a really good year last year in New England. Okay, a year before, came on in the second half of the season. I think a very talented player there. He is coming up to the end of his rookie deal, so, I'm not saying he's going to get paid like Drake London, but good time for New England to get out of the Keyshawn Booty business and Washington to fill a need. Paul, New York Giants.
Excellent. The Giants, maybe already started to address this in the last few days. Similar, I think their depth at wide receiver is pretty short. They had a great number one. Obviously, they've got a number one in Neighbors coming back off his knee injury. Outside of that, obviously, Wan'Dale Robinson, who performed really well. A lot of volume, catching necessarily any yards after any yak, but just really good move the chains receiver. They just don't seem to have kind of the options. They've signed Calvin Austin. Who else is it?
Juju?
Darnell Mooney they brought in early in free agency. This week they've added Juju Smith-Schuster, Braxton Berrios, also Odell Beckham Jr., kind of going back to where it all began. I just don't think that's the right kind of profile they're after. Maybe, again, who knows what you might get out of OBJ. We've seen enough to go think maybe he's done, but he's had a bit of time away. But I think go get one of those other more productive veterans from that are available. Your Keenan Allens that are out there. Just your reliable. Stephon Diggs could be a good fit with Jackson Dart. We saw what he was able to do with Drake May. Just go get someone who can be just a bit more solid, gives you that nice balance with Malik Neighbors on the other side, and can be that kind of reliable target for Jackson Dart. Cut down his reckless running a little bit, and giving yourself more kind of options in that passing game. I'm just not sure those names. Calvin Austin, what's left of Darius Slayton, Darnell Mooney, OBJ, Juju are the ones.
Understandable.
Over to the NFC North, Byron, and the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, stop me if you heard it before. Edge opposite Aiden Hutchinson is a weak spot again. Last year, they got 11 sacks out of Al-Quadin Muhammad, which was a real outlier on his career. A bit of a journeyman. He has now moved on to Tampa Bay. And you're looking again at who is opposite Aiden Hutchinson. You go, I don't know who's going to get a few sacks here. What about giving Derek Barnett a call? You've got 5 sacks each the last 2 seasons. We've just seen Muhammad, blow up his sack total from prior years. Barnett not over the hill just yet, previously with the Texans and the Eagles. I think he can come in and get you, half a dozen to maybe up to 10 sacks playing opposite Hutchinson on a low cost veteran minimum type deal. I don't think he's going to demand the world, and a chance to go and compete for a ring in a tough division, but a team who are favourite for the division.
Yeah,
excellent. You're the second team, Green Bay Packers.
Over to Green Bay Packers again. Similar, maybe around. We've bunched these teams up terribly because they all have similar problems. But the Packers, I think the problem is they need someone to take advantage of Parsons' attention that he gets. I mean, we've actually just heard he's not going to be from his own mouth. He's likely targeting a mid-October return from his knee injury. But when he does play, obviously he naturally gets the focus of the offense and how do we stop Mike Parsons wrecking the game. You need somebody to take advantage of it. You lost Rashan Gary. The kind of the players that have been there have been, I'd say maybe a disappointment. So maybe, Lucas Van Ness, for example, they've just not really taken off. I think you need somebody on that opposite side. Again, names like Jadeveon Clowney, Bosa, Von Miller, whatever Von Miller's got left in the tank. Didn't look great at Washington last year, did he? But was it Washington last year or Buffalo last year? I can't remember which year. Washington last year, wasn't it? Yeah. Buffalo the year before. But I think you just need somebody to take advantage of it, because sometimes Parsons can go out of games if he's really, really game planned against it. But you've got to take advantage of that. And I just don't think they're in a position to do so at the minute. And that's why I'd love to see one of those, one of the old guard come in and make that difference for Green Bay.
Grand. It's a tough division, this one, because the Bears are third favourites. We're doing this in division winner order. Defensive front still an issue. Again, stop me if you've heard this about an NFC North team yet. Can't rely on the takeaway defense from last year. Led the league in takeaways. Everything else on defense they were pretty poor at. I think Jadeveon Clowney ticks all the boxes. He does do run support. He is a pass rusher. 8.5 sacks last year for Dallas. 5.5 for the Panthers the year before that. 9.5 for the Ravens before that. Cleveland before that, Tennessee before that, Seattle before that, Houston before that. Mercenary Jadeveon Clowney comes in, does his business for a year. Might be the best player in NFL history to never have 10 sacks in a season, or best edge rusher to never have 10 sacks in a season. Wild to me. He's had 9.5 a couple of times, never 10. Not sure he'll get it in Chicago, but I think he'll do a real good job of setting the edge and rushing the passer as he gets up in age. And we finish off the NFC North, Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, this is just a bit of future planning, I guess, for the Vikings, or getting your ducks in a row. Complementary pieces are becoming expensive in the NFL. My solution for the Vikings is get ahead of it, sign Jordan Addison to a long-term deal sooner rather than later. I know Addison has had some injury problems, but he's proved a very, very reliable number two to Justin Jefferson. I think he's had a really, really good start to his NFL career. The longer you leave it, the price is only going to go up, and what he'd command on the open market. Get ahead of it, get it done. Keep Jordan Addison in the building, and you're getting for a pretty reasonable rate. It's coming up to towards the end of his rookie deal now. So get him signed, keep him in the building. Kevin O'Connell loves him. Just why risk causing yourself a problem in 12 to 24 months' time?
Absolutely, and that takes us to the NFC South. Starting with the division favorite Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, a little tough to pick here. I was thinking maybe some veteran leadership with losing Mike Evans and Levante David in the offseason, but I went with the cornerback room could use an extra body. I was trying to look at who would be a good fit there. Riley Moss coming up to the end of his rookie contract, one of the top 5 white cornerbacks in the league. And Denver will want to see a progress from Jahdae Barron. Not saying he'll necessarily take Riley Moss's role, but he should take a lot of them snaps this year. Only played 30% roughly as a rookie, Jahdae Barron. So I think a good opportunity for Riley Moss to be available coming out of Denver. I think a good fit for the scheme fit of Todd Bowles there. So I think Tampa Bay Buccaneers going, for a mid to late round pick for Riley Moss. Get a good veteran on your defensive backfield. Paul, New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, the Saints. I think this is probably we've talked a lot of positive stuff about the Saints, because I think we've all been impressed with how they finished the season last year, and so the moves that they've been making. I think probably they're a little bit short on defense. I think again they've got a lot of. I think again, they've got some pieces in there that have been productive, but I just think they're a bit short of talent. I think overall talent level on the defense is a bit short. They're relying on a lot of defensive players that played a lot down the stretch to have big progression over the offseason and be in a position to be, key starters and key difference makers. But I think you've lost Demario Davis, Cam Jordan. Obviously, he's a free agent as it stands. Talk about trying to get one kind of last deal or last go at it. I think you just do what you need to bring Cam back. I think you need the leadership. And they've got some, again, talented veterans. People like Justin Reed, who's got a couple of Super Bowl rings. They've got, Caden Ellis, I think, was a good pickup in free agency from the Falcons to play a linebacker. But I think outside of these, some pieces and young pieces that have been good, like Khalid McKinstry was good down the stretch, for example. We'll see kind of what they've got under the front. But I think just go get that guy. He's a symbol of the city. I think losing both Davis and Jordan in one off season would be too much. So I think this will probably likely happen. That a deal will get worked out. Make it friendly for Cam. Make it friendly for the team, and bring him back for one last go. And see, like I say, if they can lead this team to an NFC South title.
Grand. And third in the division winners last year, surprisingly to some. Carolina Panthers. Again, bit of an odd roster, no glaring needs, I didn't think. They've done a lot to improve the offensive line and the defense overall last couple of years. But the tight end room has blockers plenty. Tommy Tremble, Jatavian Sanders, Mitchell Evans, Felipe Franks. But there isn't a playmaker there, unfortunately. Jatavian Sanders keep getting teased about, what about we get Darren Waller, rap superstar, in for red zone, pass plays. You might be throwing your hand a little bit, you know what's coming, but you've also got to stop it. It was very effective for the Dolphins last year on a bit limited work. But there's still a player in there. He still, wants to play football. I would give him a call, see if he'll come in for a cheap deal and become, your red zone target, your big threat down the middle there. So, yeah, Darren Waller to Carolina for me. And Paul Falcons to finish off the NFC South.
Yeah, NFC South, we talked about the contract that Drake London had to start. And I wrote this before that came in. But they've got expensive decisions to make. They've just made one of those and make them early, which they kind of did with Drake London. But I was saying they needed to make a decision of either extending Kyle Pitts, who's on the franchise tag, before the deadline in a few weeks' time, or get a long-term deal for B. John Robinson done. Ideally, before the Detroit Lions do it for Jahmyr Gibbs. Both went in the same draft in 2023. 2023, yeah. So, yeah, get that deal done. Save what you can, in essence, because it's going to be the biggest running back deal. Whichever one gets, obviously, they're both going to be. It's just whichever one gets done first is going to save that, that few quid, I guess, or, a little bit of money. But the Falcons are in a position to do it. I think they, obviously in a position where they have to eat Kirk Cousins, and they're paying Kirk Cousins to play for the Raiders, pretty much. I think that starts to go away in 2027. So you can just, you're in a position, I think, to do what you need to do. And I'd suggest actually maybe just get Pitts done now and get him a reasonable rate with what that franchise type deal is on a longer term deal. I feel like if you're doing that, you're kind of quite committed to him at this point. So do it. Obviously, it feels like again he made some positive steps in 2025. And then you've got plenty of room come later on to get that deal done for B. John. Down the line, it's going to make him the highest paid running back in the NFL. And deservedly so. He's been outstanding through his first 3 seasons. So that's what I'd do if I was the Atlanta Falcons. Just get ahead of the game a little bit. On to the West.
LA Rams, they already stole my first one. I was thinking they might steal my second one as well with some of these workout videos this week. But you're Super Bowl favorites for a reason. You've took the extra step that I was demanding you do. Now let's get nuts. Let's get wild. Get Aaron Donald on the phone. One last dance. Super Bowl's in SoFi, like you say. He'll still be in LA. Still be living that good life. He is in football shape by the look of things. He's already hinting a little. He's ready. It doesn't feel like it's been completely ruled out as a possibility. Okay, you do what you have to get Aaron Donald back on that football field and go wreak havoc. You want to try and stop Myles Garrett, double team in. Well, you've also got Aaron Donald in the middle now. Good luck. See if that 11-2 is still available once they sign Aaron Donald. I don't think it will. Very fun possibility. And thankfully, they didn't get it done, so I didn't have to rewrite a third time. For the LA Rams, Super Bowl favorites. Super Bowl holders, though, Paul. Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, they've made contract move, I think, earlier this week by getting Derek Hall signed, I think, on Tuesday. It's Thursday, isn't it? Yeah. But I think they can do more. And get more of those key pieces signed up. And this is another one similar to that kind of Falcon suggestion. Again, keeping key contributors while making the money work is very, very tough. And there's difficult choices to be made, especially when you talk about keeping championship teams together. That defense is, again, one of the top, if not the best defense in the NFL. Trying to keep its key people in there, keep players in there is going to be hard because they're all going to command money. We saw Woolen go, obviously, was a huge part of that. But again, I'd get ahead of the game here, extend Devon Witherspoon before the Patriots do it with Christian Gonzalez. Again, one of these two, or both of them are probably going to end up for at least, or one of them for a short period of time, is going to end up being the highest paid corner in the NFL. And again, for Seattle, get in front of it. Do what, see that first moment you can, get Devon Witherspoon done, get him tied down. And again, it just gives you that flexibility, or as much flexibility as you can have, trying to keep all these pieces in town, that are kind of the cornerstones of cornerstones of your team. So that's what I would be pushing to do for the Seattle Seahawks. Over to San Fran.
Yeah, I could have went a couple of different directions here. I was thinking about the O-line, but it doesn't feel very Shanahan-coded to go O-line this late in the offseason. They did take some rookies there as well. So I'm going to say give George Kittle time to get back up to speed. He's already jogging. They're saying a September return date is, in the pipeline. That's anticipation right now. I say sign Will Disley, a vet minimum contract. Someone who, he came in the league as like a blocking tight end who surprisingly done these spectacular catches. He's kind of fell off that spectacular catch thing there, but I think he's got really good traits. I think he's someone that Shanahan would like around the building and would like, as that 6'4" lineman. The one, you lose the pass catcher George Kittle, but you also lose the incredible blocker that is George Kittle. I'm not expecting Disley to be able to come in and do the pass catching, but you've got Mike Evans, you've got Pearsall, you've got Christian Kirk. Until George Kittle is fully 100% ready to go, I think having a player like Will Disley can bring in as a rotational veteran tight end and just solidify your offensive line, which is still an issue. I think would be really helpful. Supporting the entire run game, passing game, even if he doesn't actually get much in the way of targets himself. And to finish us off and to go a little full circle, the Arizona Cardinals, Paul.
Yeah, I feel like we've mentioned this already. Our 16th and final NFC team started with one of the earlier ones. But yeah, the Cardinals, and again, we've been dinging the Cardinals all off season long for just kind of some of the decisions that they're making, really. Really poorly run organization. Apologies if you're a Cardinals fan. But yeah, they just got gaps everywhere. The talent deficient all over, and even Jacoby Brissett's holding out. Like, this isn't going well for Arizona.
I imagine that holdout got harder with Myles Garrett. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, definitely. Some more danger pay for Jacoby Brissett required. But they have got gaps. And really, I think the thing to do is just burn it down. Like, let's just rip it up and start again. And there's probably some that it's easy to say, that you can start flipping everyone. I think there's some actually people you probably can't flip, like Trey McBride, for example. Mm-hmm. Maybe at this point still Marvin Harrison Jr. But outside of that, I don't think there's too many people that would be untouchable on the Arizona Cardinals roster. And Jeremiah Love as well, because they've just taken him. But I think you start getting resources that you need for this big rebuild, because you're going to need a lot of them. So start flipping them. Start with Josh Sweat. I think, again, he's the one from a contract perspective where you can still get something reasonable for him. I think you can still probably get you get a bit high mid-round pick for him potentially, and you need to start collecting these, and that's when you're hopeful that whoever is going to be leading the Cardinals in the future, whoever the GM is, you start then using those assets to move up to create bigger ones. I think that's what you're going to need to do, but it's got to start having to clear out now, because what you're putting together right now as a product, as a team, as a roster, ain't cutting it. You can't carry on down this path. So flip it and rip it up and start again. Start with Josh Sweat. Preferably send him to the Dallas Cowboys. Excellent. Right, Byron, that's us done. All 32 teams, a fix each. Some teams had to have multiple fixes put in because they just couldn't wait for us to record our episodes. But yeah, happy with your selections for the teams. I guess we'll maybe look back in the week of the season and see maybe how many of these have come to fruition.
Yeah, I'm claiming Myles Garrett already because you knew that.
You can have that,
even if the video wasn't there, you knew it was there on the sheet. Yeah, I'm interested to see how many of these we do get right and how many we go, well, we actually should be GMs because we're doing better than the actual GMs. So, which I automatically believe we can do anyway. So, yeah, before to look back at, I've enjoyed the process though. It's been fun like say swapping all the GM hats on, trying to figure out who's who. You obviously had a Cardinals/Cowboys one, just tick off 2 at once, which is smart. Work smarter, not harder, right?
I try. It's difficult doing the show doing that though. That's our 1 minute fix shows in the book. Go check out the AFC one if you've not already. That one is much shorter. I think it's 25 minutes long, which is probably the shortest episode of Good Teams and Great Teams cover there's ever been. So go check that out because there was no news that week. So, but thanks for joining us. And some program notes, I guess, coming up with the World Cup kicking off next week in Mexico, America, and Canada. I think we've got a couple of World Cup. I don't know our usual thing, but a couple of World Cup bits lined up. There'll be a World Cup betting preview that'll go out probably the day of the first game or day before.
Mid next week. Start midway.
Yeah.
Start to mid.
Start to mid next week. So you got Byron Co, Joe's. I'm less on it, so I think that might just be you two going through your World Cup tips and best bets, and you did pretty well on the Euros. I think when we did that a couple of years ago, Joe did. So yeah, that'll be out. We're going to do a bit of a fun World Cup draft. I think we're going to draft our all-time World Cup 11s with some restrictions to make it difficult for us. So we'll get that out again in the next couple of days. We've got a couple more interviews lined up with some European college football players. Really excited for that. And then we'll get into our division previews and things will start ramping up as we head towards the kickoff in September. So to keep up with all of that, make sure you are following and subscribe to Good Teams and Great Teams cover, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, the video version available on YouTube. And yeah, follow at GTW_GTC on Instagram, X, TikTok, and Blue Sky, and there'll be more and more across all those channels. And yeah, follow, like, and subscribe to all of them, and that will be a massive help. And we'll see you in a few days for some World Cup talk.